Is there something that you want removed from the internet? Well, a very silly bug in a tool that you've never heard of could have helped you do just that. Also in your hacking news roundup, your favourite hacker dolphin is back in the news, and for all the wrong reasons, and how resurrecting 200-year-old laws could help fight cybercrime. But first, a bug in a certain tool could have helped you remove anything from Google search. But let's get some context here. At the centre of this is a tech CEO who went on a whole crusade to have negative information on him scrubbed from the internet. A blog post spawned in 2023, revealing that he was arrested for allegedly beating up his girlfriend. She ended up recanting her statement and the CEO was never charged. But he wasn't too happy with news of his arrest being published on the interwebs, kickstarting a whole saga of all kinds of attempts to get the post taken down. The journalist says he was offered money to remove it, false DMCA takedowns were filed, there's reports of intimidation tactics, and even lawsuits were filed. The backstory here runs really deep, but it's way outside the scope of this video, which is a good thing too, because that means I can stop talking about the guy before he decides to sue me as well. But anyway, a blog post covering all the different attempts to silence the journalist was written by the Freedom of the Press Foundation, but ironically their blog post was itself silenced, mysteriously vanishing from Google search. Even if you searched for the post's exact headline, it still wouldn't show up, despite showing just fine on Bing and DuckDuckGo. The culprit was in Google's Refresh Outdated Content tool. This tool is meant to provide a way for anyone to request that Google removes a URL from search if the page is no longer live, but Google is still suggesting it for some reason. But a bug meant that you could take the URL of a page indexed by Google and then just change the capitalization of a few characters in the path, submitting that through the tool. Since capitalization really matters in URLs, this URL you submitted doesn't exist, and Google's crawler will try visiting it, but just find a 404. Google will then delete the URL from search, but a case insensitivity bug meant that any URL that matches your input, regardless of capitalization, will also be removed, resulting in the real page being totally deleted from Google search globally. After a day or two, Google will reindex the page again, but you could just keep on submitting these buggy removal requests to keep the page offline, resulting in a game of digital whack-a-mole. And you, as a website owner, would have absolutely no idea this was happening unless you checked the logs on your Google Search Console to find that someone had submitted the same URL to the tool a bunch of times with slightly different capitalization on each attempt. And it seems that Google might have known about this for years. There's a support request from over 2 years ago pointing out that the tool could be abused. A Google employee said that they'd look into it, but it seems nothing else came of it. When the Freedom of the Press Foundation asked Google about what is a pretty fundamental problem, they responded with, "Don't worry about it. The issue only impacted a tiny fraction of websites," which is a pretty pointless thing to say given that Google indexes around 400 billion web pages. But they did say that the issue is now fixed, and I suppose for legal reasons I should point out that since Google doesn't record who submits these requests, there's no way of knowing whether the CEO had anything to do with these blog posts being nerfed. But one thing's for sure, the Streisand effect is in full force. A lot more people know about the original story than ever would have had the nerfing not happened. Speaking of deleting things from the internet, today's sponsor DeleteMe can help you reclaim your personal data from the internet's biggest creeps, data brokers. Data brokers continuously scrape your personal data from sources you had no idea were leaking it. Then they carefully package it up in bulk, selling it on to law enforcement, insurance companies, whoever's willing to pay really. Oftentimes you only find out who has your data when they suffer a data breach and it's leaked online for the world to see. And sure, you can opt out of data brokers individually, but it'll take you a while because there's loads of them out there. So sign up for DeleteMe and let them do the hard work for you. Just complete a quick profile so DeleteMe knows what to look for, then within 7 days they'll compile a personalized report detailing what they found. This is what mine looks like, and best of all, DeleteMe requests removal of the data on your behalf, and so long as you're a member, DeleteMe will continually check in on data brokers, regularly creating new reports. DeleteMe is giving you guys 20% off their eligible plans with my link in the description, and DeleteMe is also international, serving multiple countries. Just make sure to click the correct link in the description to take back control of your data today. Next up, the internet's favourite hacker dolphin is back in the news, and as usual, it's for all the wrong reasons. 404 Media has blown the lid on the apparent underground trade of Flipper Zero tech to break into cars. This takes the form of a Telegram channel selling firmware that can be loaded onto a regular flipper. The channel has dozens of videos showing a guy sitting in his car, tapping a couple buttons on his flipper, and magically unlocking cars around him. The firmware is being sold for $600, with the seller claiming it can be used to unlock an extensive array of cars, even some 2025 models. The Flipper Zero team has chimed in on this bad press, pointing out that this kind of hack is really nothing new. This particular hacking method has been known about for over a decade. The only thing that's new here is that it can now be done in a noob-friendly way on a Flipper Zero, instead of on something that looks a bit more like this, which requires you actually know what you're doing. But it works the same way. You have to intercept a key fob's unlock signal. Just standing by a victim as they unlock their car will usually do the trick. Then leaked manufacturer encryption keys will do the rest of the work, allowing you to create what is essentially a clone of the key fob within the flipper. The fact that lazy car manufacturers often reuse the same encryption keys across entire product lines really doesn't help, with one leaked key sometimes meaning millions of cars become vulnerable. And there's really nothing you can do to defend against it, apart from ditching your fob's RF abilities and cracking out Old Familiar. But importantly, these attacks don't allow you to actually start the engine. Regardless, the danger here is that cracked versions of this firmware that don't require you to stump up $600 are already floating about in Discord communities, and if we start seeing Kia Boys style videos of kids breaking into cars and looting whatever's inside of them using what appears to be some toy, and those videos make their way onto normie news networks, then we can expect this to become a bit more of a moral panic, which is when politicians might start getting involved and waving ban hammers around. Let's not forget, last year Canada came close to banning the flipper altogether. Next up, could resurrecting laws not seen for 200 years help fight cybercrime? That's the idea from one US congressman who thinks that we should bring back these things, letters of marque. They were very common during war in the age of sailing ships, giving the recipient, usually a merchant vessel, the license to attack and capture enemy ships during their voyage, essentially a legalized form of piracy. So if you were sailing the high seas as the captain of an English merchant ship during the Napoleonic Wars and spotted a French-flagged vessel on the horizon, you could choose to go on a little side quest, attacking the ship and looting their cheese and wine, then selling the loot back at port as a nice little kind of side hustle. And it was also great for the war effort because it helped to damage your enemy's economy. So everybody wins, well, except the French. Fun fact, in French, someone operating under a letter of marque was often called a corsair, which is probably where Corsair the company got their name from. They've even got a set of sails as their logo. But back to present day, the proposed bill points out that whilst America's letter of marque laws haven't been used since 1812, they do still exist today as part of America's original constitution. The bill would give the presidents the ability to issue modern-day digital versions to privately armed and equipped persons, but rather than sailors with cannons, we're talking white hat hackers, allowing them to use all means reasonably necessary to seize the property of any foreign individual or even government who's involved in cybercrime, responsible for acts of aggression against the US, which would, for example, give the green light for white hats to hack Russian ransomware gangs and seize their doubloons, but there's no mention of whether they'd actually be allowed to keep the pieces of 8-bit. The bill also says that any white hat who accepted a letter of marque would need to post a security bond, a kind of insurance payments that would be forfeited if they overstepped the mission parameters and hacked something they shouldn't. The congressman behind the bill says that we desperately need to bring these things back because law enforcement alone is just failing to keep pace with the bad guys and could use some reinforcements. And he has a point. Cybercrime cost the US $16 billion last year, and that's just direct losses like theft from crimes that were actually reported. It's nothing compared to the overall losses, including indirect losses like downtime and recovery, which is thought to be absolutely massive. However, a problem with these letters of marque, historically speaking, was that when the government eventually rescinded them, many sailors weren't too happy about it and kept on plundering anyway, only now they were considered pirates. The bill has literally only just been introduced, there's a long way to go before it comes close to becoming law, and currently there's no indication of whether the Orange Man is even on board with it. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.